Welcome here. There is another video on getting the best from your K-Control. That's what you can do with your K-Control in your plant to get the best return from it. What you should expect to get from your K-Control. We're not going to cover plastic part optimization, processing optimization. We're just going to talk about what you should expect to get from your K-Control. Okay, so let's start with the blue side here. We've got process optimization. It's one of the major benefits of K-Control. We've got automatic temperature compensation, another major benefit of K-Control. And finally, traceability, knowing what you've molded over the last number of weeks, months, and being able to provide that data to your customers. So most of the benefits will fall under these three areas. This is what we're seeing as being the most common areas of benefit for our customers. So process optimization. So measuring the temperature inside the mold obviously gives you eyes inside the mold. It lets you look inside the mold. Okay. Previously, you put a mold into the oven. You set a timer. When it comes out, you make a guess at what's happening. It becomes even more difficult when you want to change a parameter. Okay. What do you change, and how do you know what the effect is? It allows you effectively to make informed decisions. So it provides the engineer with a very good tool to make informed decisions. In other words, it takes the guesswork out of the process. It knows, in its most basic form, it knows when to remove a part from the oven, when to remove it from the cooling bay, and when to get it out of the mold by giving you the temperature, the main marker of what's happening. It allows you to standardize your part testing. So if you are providing a part that requires critical mechanical properties, impact, flex, tensile properties, you want to be able to say, well, I can compare that part with that part because I know that they were both cooked at the same temperature, the same rates, etc., etc. Okay, so it standardizes your part testing. Consistency of the programmed recipe. So if you go to a machine that does not have K-Control on it and you say that part must be cooked at 15 minutes in the oven, 15 in the cooler, and 15 demolding, you think you may have consistency, but when you take into consideration changes in ambient temperatures, then the temperature of the peak internal air, the temperature of the demo, it's all changing. Okay, so it provides consistency of the programmed recipe. So fit and forget. Know when to drop the second and third shots. Foaming and rotational molding is a very difficult thing to do consistently. With temperature monitoring, you know when to drop the second and the third shots. At least you know based on the temperatures when you should be dropping the first and the second shots. Ultimately, in terms of process optimization, we're as far as we're going to get with K-Control. Operators still have their finger on the pulse of the machine, but that's as far as we're ever going to get unless we can add some tech to allow us to control the mold. So what we're providing is the machine is in control, not the operator. Okay. So that's a brief summary of process optimization effects and what you should be aiming towards using your K-Control for within your plant. Okay. Automatic temperature compensation. The one thing we have no control over is, of course, the weather, and it changes daily, weekly, monthly, and even between daytime and nighttime there will be variations. You may not recognize how that impacts your part, but it will impact your part. And as you have a K-Control system that compensates for that temperature, That can take a whole raft of inconsistencies out of your molding. Okay. So the biggest effect that weather has is on your cooling. Okay. In the heating side, you put air, albeit ambient air, into your oven, but you're heating it up to a specific temperature with your burner. In the cooling bay, you're just sucking air from the factory or from outside, and that will change dramatically. And a 20-degree variation in your 20 degrees Celsius variation in your ambient temperature can have a major impact on the demolding temperatures of parts, which will again impact shrinkage and warpage and so on. And you'll see that in your factory insofar as there's a very good chance that many of you will change the cooling times or maybe even the heating times between winter and summer. What else changes? The mold and the oven start temp. So at the beginning of the shift, when the oven's been switched off and you switch it on for the first time, we have to do these setups to try and compensate for the fact that it's the first molding of the day. Leave the oven on for a little bit longer, leave the mold in the oven for 5 minutes longer. But it's not very scientific approach. So measuring the temperature takes care of those startup temps. Powder temps, that's another thing. If you're storing powder in large quantities to mold, well, the powder will eventually become that ambient temperature. So again, if your ambient temperature varies, so will your powder temperature, and powder temperatures will again affect the cycling of your parts. How big that effect is going to depend excuse me, on the quality that you're looking to get out of your machine. Okay. What else will change in terms of temperature and in terms of the effect of the temperature on your parts? So thermal conductivities, and thermal capacitances. Let's say you change from a steel mold to an aluminium mold. That's going to affect the rate at which the heat is getting to the plastic. K-KONTROL will compensate for that automatically. Okay. Machine independent. If you're measuring temperature in your factory and you have 10 machines, you can take the mold that works perfectly well in machine 1, and by copying the internal air temperature trace for the other machines, you're going to cook exactly the same part. So no longer will you have parts that can only operate on machine 1 or machine 5. Okay, so it gives you machine independence. It also gives you mold independence as well. So if you want to make a 3-layer part, you can effectively take that 3-layer part and put it into any mold and follow the same temperature traces, and you will get you'll be an awful lot closer to getting success sooner with that new mold setup. That's one thing I didn't write down here, and I should have in process optimization. Mold setup. Let's just write that down now so that we don't forget that. So mold, product setup. So a new molding, a new part comes in, and with temperature monitoring, you can get to a finished, usable production item much sooner without too much trouble, scrap. Okay, so we're on to traceability now. Traceability is very important if you're making parts that are technically challenging, or they're for a customer who has a high standard of quality. If you're making fuel tanks, especially for the automotive industry, you're going to need to have a certain amount of traceability for your customer, so that if there are failures in the field, well, you can leaf back through the data and say, well, we produced this the same way what we were producing all our other parts, so there's something else that perhaps is amiss. It's not our processing. So that is what traceability is for, and it's good for quality reports within your factory. So if you've got scrap rate measurement within your factory, you're going to also need to have automatically quality reports, looking at what's been good and what's been bad over the last month. So traceability of the products will provide quality reports You'll be able to look at annual variations in quality. Why are we always getting bad parts, for example, in December? Well, there could be issues with suppliers of powder in December or whatever, okay? It's very important that you save your data. So if you're recording the data, you're using it to control the part, well, save the data, put it into the cloud, put it onto a server, onto a PC. It doesn't cost much money to save data now. Save it and store it. If you use K-Cord on a laptop, it will automatically save the data on a daily basis with a date stamped file, and it will break that down into your different arms, arm 1, arm 2, arm 3. So at least you can have a very good chance at finding the correct data. It helps for troubleshooting. So you've got problems, but you didn't have those problems 2 months ago. Let's look at the temperature data. That's most likely to highlight what the problem could be. Of course, if your problem is nut certs are not being inserted, well, that's another operator issue that you can deal with. And accountability as well. It gives us a little bit of accountability when we have data to stand over what we've been manufacturing. So those are the three main areas that I have found in my experience that our customers are finding the greatest benefit from using K-Control, and that is the kind of thing that we should be aiming for. So we want to get down here, we want to get all this. If you work at this will give you optimum quality, reduce your scrap rates, therefore reduce your costs, and ultimately to increase the profit. So that's the bottom line. We want to get profit up by using these different techniques. I'm sure you all agree with me to this point here, but this is where a diversion can take place. The most important thing with K-Control, with buying this K-Control thermometer, is to use it, and use it and repeat and get persistence with the operators, persistence with the supervisors to make sure that the K-Control is implemented within the factory, and then you simply become the top supplier of these parts. Okay. Return on investment. We have seen returns on investment from 1 year into 6 months. We've seen a return on investments of as little as 1 week, where one customer bought a K-Control on his arm to make a multi-layer part that he was a new product, constantly failing. He wasn't able to get it right. Monitored temperature. Suddenly, they were able to get the part made, and he called me up and said, "We've paid back this K-Control in 1 week." Okay, average returns on investment are coming in at 3 months. Okay, so 3 months turnaround, but you can't buy it, put it on the machine, and forget about it, and just expect in 3 months' time your money's going to be made back. You need to follow these 3 areas of implementation. So that was a short video on trying to get the best from your K-Control and where to start. Okay, and I hope that was useful for you. Thank you.